Hello, and welcome to tonight's broadcast of 60 Minutes. I am your host, Carson Alsup, and also joining me tonight is our very own Allison Morast. On tonight's broadcast, we are going to explore the 1986 Challenger shuttle disaster. Joining us via Skype interview will be Mr. Steve Cash, who is a stress analyst working on the solid rocket booster of the shuttle. We are also going to be joined by the University of Arkansas's two very prestigious ergonomic experts, Victoria Goethel and Elizabeth Laster.
Hi, my name is Allison Morast. In 1983, NASA launched their second reusable space shuttle, the Challenger. The shuttle made 9 successful trips into space until a tragedy occurred on January 28, 1986, when it exploded over the Atlantic Ocean, killing all 7 crew members. An investigation was ordered, which found that the low temperatures led to the erosion of the O-rings, which were what sealed the joints of the solid rocket boosters.
Thank you, Allison. We will now move into the interview segment of our show. So, Mr. Cash, could you please describe some of the human errors that led up to the failure?
We had never done a full-scale test on a joint that was flawed yet either, and that was kind of one of those things that before Challenger no one would consider doing, and that's because they were afraid if you failed that joint, you might lose a major test facility. You would probably shut the program down for some extended period of time.
Were there any other human errors?
And so there was definitely a communication issue between engineering and the program. We didn't do a good job of giving management our rationale on why we were concerned about the joint.
We know the engineers were aware of the O-ring erosion issue, so why did the launch proceed?
Differently. But so we had a bad definition of what failure was. We kept thinking as long as we were completing our mission that we were doing the right things, and really what we should have been was standing down.
Why did Morton Thiokol, the engineering firm responsible for designing the O-rings, recommend the launch?
Okay, because they didn't have the data to say that it was safe to fly, and they didn't have the data to say it was unsafe to fly. So it kind of put them in an untenable position because they couldn't tell them either way. And the best thing would have been to stand down until you understood what the data said, but they didn't. The Thiokol management decided that they would take the risk, and they recommended flying to NASA, which is what NASA wanted to do. So they accepted that recommendation, and we went to the next morning and went to fly.
Was there any internal conflict among the engineering team that led to failure?
People from the outside come in, they can point out issues that you're having because we get into group think. Okay, if you're all and you've all been working on the same thing, we tend to come to the same conclusions. And a lot of times, somebody who'll come in and say, have you thought about this? The light comes on because they're looking at it from a different direction.
I'm Victoria Goethel, and this is Elizabeth Laster, and we're going to discuss some human factors that contributed to the Challenger disaster.
A human error that occurred was that people tended to seek information that confirmed the chosen course of action and avoided information whose outcome could disconfirm the choice. Mr. Cash touched on groupthink, where a group of engineers over time had the tendency to start thinking similarly. A simple resolution would be to bring an outside source to ask the hard questions and challenge the group to think outside the box.
People giving a large amount of weight to early information was also a prevalent human error in this situation. The Challenger had previously made successful trips even with the eroding O-rings, and due to these successes, the O-rings weren't given appropriate attention. In order to prevent this from occurring, people shouldn't accept a successful outcome if all expectations aren't met.
Another human error that contributed to the event was the lack of communication between the engineers and upper-level management. As Mr. Cash mentioned, the engineers did not present their data clearly to the management. Communication issues can be mitigated by having a person speak up when issues arise, as well as building relationships between the co-workers, making it easier to express disagreements.
Thank you, Victoria and Elizabeth, for that analysis. I'm your host, Carson Alsup, signing off. I hope you enjoyed this program of 60 Minutes.